Master of skills, music, and insults, the Bard is a versatile caster, martial class, and just about all-rounder skill check master, and one of the best classes in the game for an indecisive player who wants to do a little bit of everything.
Most impressive.
So let's break it all down. Let me know in the comments how you're building out your Bard, and these class guides are designed to teach you the mechanics of a class and everything you need to know to succeed. The playlist will be right here. So playing as a Bard, you have a whole lot of things available to you, like I sort of touched on in the intro. So not only are you a versatile caster in that you gain a ton of spell slots and a pretty decent breadth of different spells that you can use, both offensive and defensive and support spells, you also have a really high charisma, as that's your spellcasting modifier, so they are great talkers in combat. Say if you're playing a Bard as your player character, you're talking a lot, you can pass a lot of charisma checks, and there are heaps of charisma checks in this game. But even outside of that, they also gain access to Jack of all trades, which allows them to add half their proficiency bonus to any ability check in the game that they're not proficient with. And on top of that, they also gain more skills than basically any other class in the game, and they gain expertise in some skills, which allows them to double their proficiency bonus in certain skills. So you've got a bunch of spells and skills available to you, and then also, depending on your subclass choice, you can either specialize in, say, like a paladin-esque sort of subclass using, say, a sword and a shield or something like that, or you can go sort of a bit more of a flexible melee fighter range with some sort of a finesse weapon in one hand, or you could just play as a spellcaster from range, like the lore subclass. There's a lot of flexibility with the Bard, and I think that they are a really solid class if you're not exactly sure what you want to do in Baldur's Gate 3. Like, if you just know that you want to pass a lot of checks, like you don't like to see that dice roll saying it failed, and you actually just sort of want to succeed in different ways, then you're going to have a bunch of success with the Bard. So let's create a Bard. Now we're going to start with the best races. Now obviously roleplay considerations here, you can pick whatever you like, but considering in terms of like a min-max perspective, you almost need to think about what subclass you're going as a Bard, because they are relevant when it comes to the proficiencies that you gain from your races. So if you're going to, say, maybe play something like a College of Law Bard, which doesn't gain medium armor proficiency or something, then maybe the Gith is helpful for that. Also, the Giths gain Misty Step as a racial spell as well, so you can then use Misty Step without actually having to consume one of your spells that you are actually learning, because you do have a limited amount of spells as a Bard. As an elf, you get bow proficiency, which is maybe a good backup if, say, you're looking to be some sort of a ranged caster and you run out of spell slots, you can use a bow, plus it also comes with dark vision. If you're going the more melee route, like the School of Valor or School of Swords, the Half-Orc is always a great option for melee classes because of the relentless endurance and savage attacks, but you also won't have to worry about, say, going a Gith for those races, because you get medium armor proficiency just via that subclass, so you're sort of doubling up a little bit there. But you can maybe think about something like a half-elf or a human or a dwarf for just different proficiencies as well. But there's a lot of flexibility in terms of picking a race for the Bard. It just depends on what you're necessarily looking for, but if you just want to pick based on role-playing choices, you really won't go wrong. Best skills for the Bard. Now, the charisma skills here are definitely the main ones, so deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. You want to make sure you specialize in these. For your background, I would actually pick something that gives you dexterity-based skills, because as a Bard, you will have good dexterity, so you could go something like charlatan, criminal, entertainer, or urchin to gain some of those dexterity skills. But also keep in mind that if you're going to go the School of Law subclass, you'll gain arcana, intimidation, and sleight of hand proficiencies, so don't actually pick those up in character creation. And on top of that, you also gain Jack of all trades at level 2, which we talked about earlier, to add half of your proficiency bonus to any ability check you're not proficient in, and later on you'll get some expertises as well, so you can specialize even further in some of the charisma skills. But skills are very important for a Bard, and you're going to have a lot of them, and you're going to pass a huge amount of them. For your ability points here, you want to get your charisma to 16 and get your dex to 16 or 15, and then your constitution to 14 as well. You could get your constitution up a little bit further if, say, you're going like the School of Valor for like that sort of tanky subclass. You can maybe switch your dex and con around here to get that little bit of extra HP. It's also good for constitution saving throws if you're concentrating on something as well, but getting around that sort of mark for those stats is probably the main thing I would focus on. Alright, so subclasses. Now, there is 3 of them for the Bard. There is the School of Law, the School of Valor, and the School of Swords. Each of these will change your bardic inspiration to sort of specialize in something specific. So bardic inspiration, which I think we forgot to touch on earlier, so that's my bad, but essentially what bardic inspiration does is it will allow you to add a 1d6, or as you get higher levels, that dice actually increases, to a ally's next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Now, depending on the subclass you pick here, your bardic inspiration will change in different ways and you'll use it in potentially different ways. But for the most part, the subclass that you pick at level 3, you sort of know everything you need to know about what's going to happen with that line. So as a school of lore, you're focusing on the spellcasting elements of the bard. Now, you'll gain proficiencies in arcana, intimidation, and sleight of hand. You also get the cunning words reaction, so you can give a target a 1d6 penalty to their next attack roll or ability checks or damage dealt, which is also a valuable way to use your reactions. You also gain additional magical secrets when you level up, so you can learn more spells from other classes, which is absolutely beneficial for a bard with their limited pool of spells available. The School of Valor is a tanky subclass similar to a paladin sort of a style. You gain medium armor proficiency, shield proficiency, and martial weapon proficiency, plus your bardic inspiration will become combat inspiration. So on top of being able to add that dice roll to attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, it can now also be added to weapon damage or armor class. Plus at level 6, you'll gain an extra attack as well. So if you use your first attack as a melee attack or ranged, you'll be able to attack again in that same turn. And that's the same for the School of Swords. You'll also gain that extra attack, except in this subclass, you're more focused on a offensive melee fighter. So you'll still gain that medium armor proficiency. You also gain scimitar proficiency as well as blade flourish, so you can use that to knock enemies off balance, but you also get the flourish attacks. Now, these are special attacks that will consume your bardic inspiration to deal additional damage or additional effects, one of them being a teleport, so you can teleport to the enemies, one of them allowing you to attack 2 enemies that are next to each other. Is dependent on the different elements that you want to focus on. And you also pick a fighting style here between dueling, so wielding a one-handed weapon and gaining extra damage because of that, or 2-weapon fighting, so essentially dual wielding 2 weapons. So how do you pick between these 3? It's dependent on what you want to do. So if you want to be more of a spellcaster, staying at ranged and casting spells, then School of Lore is the way you want to go. If you want to get into the thick of things, potentially tank some damage and deal extra martial attacks with your extra attack, then the School of Valor is for you. And if you want to get fancy with swords and sort of focus more on dealing damage in melee range and then casting spells secondarily, then the School of Swords is probably the option to go for. For the best feats here, I think for the most part, you're probably just going to go ability improvement to get your charisma up, especially for all of these skill checks that will help with, but also for any of your spell casting, especially if you're going School of Lore, it's absolutely beneficial. If you've gone the School of Valor or School of Swords, then Warcaster isn't a bad option to give you an extra shocking grasp opportunity attack if something moves out of your melee range. You also gain advantage on saving throws when you're concentrating on a spell, which a lot of the time you probably will be concentrating on a spell, so it's also a good option. But you could maybe go the magic initiates to grab either warlock or sorcerer spells here and cantrips, because you do share a charisma modifier with them, so you could grab something like Eldritch Blast in the warlock line or something like that. But I think for probably the most part, unless you are desperate to get more spells, which in that case you would have gone School of Lore and you'll get those anyway as you level up, so you'll probably just go ability improvement here to get your charisma up, unless you've found a better option here, which we did touch on. Best spells and cantrips here. Vicious Mockery is an amazing cantrip that does a tiny little bit of damage, but you're mainly using it to give an enemy disadvantage on their next attack roll. So if there's a big major threat in that encounter, potentially a boss encounter, using Vicious Mockery to give them disadvantage on their attacks is absolutely huge. I also am a fan of Cloud of Daggers, as it's a great area of control spell that deals slashing damage to enemies in an area. Heat Metal is also great because it'll deal damage and actually have them drop their weapon as well a lot of the time. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is great to get an enemy out of an encounter for a period of time. Also, if you're looking for more spells, check out my spells video, which goes through a bunch of some of the best spells in the game, so it help you make that decision. Some class tips for the bard to finish off. So when you're using bardic inspiration on an ally, make sure you've gone into their spellbook and ticked the reaction options so that you don't waste that inspiration on something unnecessary, especially if you want to save it for a certain type of roll, like whether it's be an attack roll or a damage roll if you're School of Valor or something like that. So just make sure that you've ticked those options. All bards will also get Song of Rest, which is essentially it's a free short rest. So after certain encounters, you can use it once per long rest. So you essentially have 3 short rests before you need to long rest as having a bard in your party. And this is really beneficial for classes that gain things back on short rests. So you've got that option as well. And as you level up, you will gain magical secrets as a bard, which allows you to grab different spells from different classes. I reckon you should take Hex here, because Hex is a fantastic spell that you can cast as a bonus action, which is sometimes difficult to use as a bard. And you could use that to cast on an enemy just to deal extra necrotic damage when you hit them. This is great for any of the subclasses where they're using martial weapons or spells to deal damage, also fantastic. And because of the Bard's flexibility, they are one of the best classes for multi-classing, right? I'll have a full video coming out about multi-classing as well, but I just wanted to touch on it here that they are fantastic because they've got a charisma modifier, which is shared with a warlock and a sorcerer and some other classes as well. Plus they're a class that doesn't gain a heap of like class features or subclass features across their levels. It's mostly at level 3 or level 6, so you've got the ability to say hit level 3 and then multi-class into something else, or same at like level 6, you can then multi-class into something else. But I just wanted to call that out here. But let me know your thoughts on the Bard, and thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.